New questions about the initial reaction to the case. Many top Democrats seem to immediately take Smollett's allegations as fact. Some even sought to blame President Trump. Here's Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Watters reacting on the day of the alleged incident.
We have to understand this is happening for a reason. It's coming from the President of the United States. He's dog whistling every day. He's separating and dividing. And he is basically emboldening those folks who feel this way.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in this now deleted tweet, wrote, "The racist, homophobic attack on Smollett is an affront to our humanity. No one should be attacked for who they are or whom they love." Senator and 2020 candidate Kamala Harris tweeted that the attack was an attempted, quote, modern-day lynching. Fellow 2020 candidate Senator Cory used the same term to describe the attack, but here's what he's saying now.
The information is still coming out. I'm going to withhold until all the information actually comes out. Since 9/11, the majority of the terrorist attacks on our soil have been right-wing terrorist attacks.
All right. Chris, the jumping to conclusions. I mean, you take someone at their word when they say that they've been a victim of a crime. That seems logical enough. But to then go to that next extent, where you're blaming the president, I don't know, your thoughts on sort of like the hyper pile-on.
Well, what blew me away about this attack was that it didn't really seem very believable. To begin with, I mean, if you hear it, and it shows you the frame of mind that a lot of these folks are in the media and in politics, that they actually think that it seems likely that there are bands of white rednecks roaming Chicago at 2 a.m. with nooses and bleach yelling, "This is MAGA country," and attacking random people. That would be an incredibly hokey kind of television show. Nobody would watch that kind of drama. And they all jumped on it and said, of course, yeah, that sounds right. That's what Trump supporters do.
But moving on to the part where you're blaming the president for having created an environment where that happened, Kennedy, I mean, so somebody comes out and they say they were a victim of something. Yeah. I mean, to come out and make a statement, at first you're going to believe them and look into it and that sort of thing and treat them with respect out of the gate no matter what. And you don't blame anyone for doing that in this case, for sure. But kind of that next level where you had, Maxine Watters, for example, saying this is the attitude, it starts at the top, he's dividing us, look what happened.
Well, as you look at Maxine Watters and you say, okay, well, what are you doing to bring us together? What are you doing to bridge the divide? Because there is a divide in this country, and there is real racism. But when something like this happens, it's absolutely true. It diminishes the claims of other people who come forward and people who are victims of legitimate, horrific acts and intentions. But, you have to go back to the beginning and say, what motivated, if this was in fact a total fraud, and he paid this pair of brothers that he met on the set of Empire to, perpetrate this fake crime, what is the motivation? Yeah. And it's to get people all riled up, but he didn't think a few steps down the road and that Chicago PD might actually have detectives and investigators who are going to go out and investigate his claims and take them very seriously and really start to parse them. And the other thing, and there was some talk that he was worried he was being written off of Empire and wanted to make a big splash. He says that the men who attacked him were white and clearly white, even though they were wearing face masks. And if that's the case, and these Nigerian brothers are that convincing of actors, then they should replace Jesse Smollett on the show.
Carly, Chris Steyerwalt said earlier today, that the whole thing about this age that we're in is that it's so much easier to be stupid faster.
On social media.
Well, you have social media, you have instant reaction. Yeah. People can put things out and they feel the need to dive into the divide.
And I think now we're sort of getting that instant reaction on the other side, where a lot of conservatives on Twitter are sort of pointing and laughing at Democrats. And I don't think it's wrong for Democratic politicians to condemn what they thought was a hate crime at the time. I just rewatched the interview that he did with Robin Roberts, and he said, you do such a disservice when you lie about things like this. He said that. Yeah. And if this turned out to be false, how the heck was anybody supposed to know? So you sort of have to let people be people and believe certain things like this.
Well, so maybe it's up to the media to be more responsible. I mean, for average people are going to pile on. You have somebody like, so April Ryan, for example, tweeting this attack on Jussie Smollett as a hate crime and should be treated as such. I mean, for us, at least, we've been through the mill before and should show a little bit more restraint.
And I think you're right about that, where there is a difference between a politician, somebody asking a politician for their feedback on a story, and a journalist jumping to a conclusion when it's their responsibility to report the facts.
Yeah, I think picking up on what you said, and I agree that the instinct to call out something that is perceived to be evil is a good and noble instinct, right? When we all see something, the problem is, and I think what the difference here in this situation is, instead of just calling out something that was evil, people jumped to lump it directly, to direct it at President Trump.
That's true.
And I think that's the difference here. Is I do think when we all see evil, when we all see racism and things that are unconscionable, we should call it out. Where I think, as Chris said earlier, that you alluded to, where I think everyone needs to take a deep breath, is directly linking these things to a president or to, the Democrat Party, to whatever political party. And I think that's, the main thing that we're all learning here as it relates to the Covington case as well, or as it relates to everything that we're seeing going on in Virginia on a daily basis. With the top 3 elected officials there, you have to sort of take a deep breath and say, if this happened, it's terrible, but let's not attribute things to people that when we don't have the facts of the case.
Go ahead,
and you see things that are evil in these hate crimes. You see men dragged behind trucks. You see people attacked or denied jobs or denied a place to live. What you don't see are Donald Trump supporters in red hats saying, this is MAGA country, while attacking people in the middle of the night. That would have been hokey 1930s Batman comic. I mean, it's a cartoon villain. And for so many people to just jump on board and say, that's exactly what's going on, this is a modern day lynching, they should have stepped back and said, hold on, this seems kind of outlandish.
True, but the big takeaway from all this is that we can't judge a situation until we have all the facts on the table, and we still don't have all the facts on the table.
And journalists who are covering it have to use words like alleged. And, but you're right about Nancy Pelosi's statement. The second half of her statement is absolutely true. No one should be attacked for what they are or who they love. And that is a universal truth, especially now. And we hope that the world is getting better and not worse. And, we have to stop acting like this is the absolute worst time in American history.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Kennedy. The instinct to demonize each other and to think the worst of each other is something that I think is just vitriolic in today's politics. And everybody is guilty of doing it. And instead, instead of thinking the worst of people who support the president or the worst of people that support Nancy Pelosi, can we all get back to the point of remembering that we're Americans and we may have a fundamental disagreement on policy and how we get where we think America needs to be, but that doesn't mean each other are inherently evil.
This is all Twitter's fault.
It's all Twitter's fault.
It really is.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Either way, I have compassion for someone, and I know that this annoys people, but if he did make it up, I still feel really sorry for him.
Because he's got a screw loose, like something obviously is going on.
It is sad. It's sad both ways. If it's true, it's sad. If it's not true,
but it boils down to the individual.
Sad.
It's not about groups, and it's not about being activated. It's one person who made a series. Apparently, at this point, we're learning a series of really bad choices. Yeah. And that's what it goes back to. And it speaks to his character. And, sure, we may be in a time where the political tenor is so loud and it feels so mean and unsustainable. But that still goes back to the individual and his reaction and intent.
Maybe you could suppress that urge to say, see, this is exactly what I was telling you about. And then it goes to whatever larger point people were trying to make. And now you see it on the other side, like you said, that now you see like, on the right, they're piling on and saying this is, we're going to blame the president for everything. In the end, the police will tell us what actually happened. And, then we'll know. But maybe we could all.
I think perpetrators in these cases where this has happened in the past tend to think that they're bringing sympathy to the larger cause. And actually, when this happens, the perpetrators are actually looking for attention for themselves. I'm not saying that's what's going on here. We don't know.
And they do the opposite of bringing sympathy.
The police will tell us, as you said. But this is not a new phenomenon in law enforcement.